Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, where we live stream every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, unless otherwise noted. And usually the only way the otherwise is at 9 o'clock when I have a guest on to interview. Today we have two, possibly three guests that will be joining us, and we're going to do a review of the workshop that we had last weekend, Understanding Behavior Through Working with Birds. For those that may be new, welcome. My name is Laura Joseph. I am owner of the Animal Behavior Center. We're an international educational center where we show people all over the world how to empower animals through um, how to empower animals through working with applied behavior analysis and positive reinforcement. We do that through our live streaming services and through our workshops. And you can find out more on our website right here under services, memberships, webinars. If you're looking for workshops, you can find that under events. You can also contact me at laura@theanimalbehaviorcenter.com, and I will answer any question that you have. Um, Also, on our Facebook page, you can take a look at the upcoming events, which we just launched our zoo workshop this past week. And Erin, are you on here? Okay, maybe not yet. Which we just launched our zoo workshops this past week. And if you will find out about them, I believe we sent out an email last night. We'll send out another one this week. And you can join our email newsletter list right here on our Facebook page or on our website. Let me get Erin in here. It said she's ready to join. So Erin, give me a second. Um, okay, what else do I need to announce before we go live? Um, our zoo workshops are open now to registration to the public. We've already had people starting to register, and you can find out more by going to this link. Um, Let's see if I can't. Therese, if you're on here, can you post that link in the stream so people can see it? Um, so we have three different workshops coming up. We actually have more than that, but these are the ones that we're ready to announce. There's three different workshops coming up, and you will find out more about that on our Facebook page. So today we're joined by Megan Johnson, Sharman Hall, and Aaron. I hope I don't mess up your last name. Aaron Jeruzel. Okay, I'll bring you Jeruzel. Great, thank you. Okay, and they were three attendees of the 10 that we allow in that attended our workshop last weekend, Understanding Behavior Through Working with Birds. When we offered this last year, it sold out, and it was mostly attended by people, dog trainers and zoo trainers. This year, it was attended by all bird people, which I was excited to have. But a lot of people who want to fine tune their technique, I highly suggest training numerous different species of animals, um, especially birds, because the behaviors can be so subtle. It just really helps fine tune your technique and your observation skills. So let's go ahead and bring everybody on. Aaron, let me make sure you are unmuted. So I just unmuted you. And we're going to start by bringing on Megan Johnson, who attended last week. And now we're going to bring in Sharman Hull, who also attended last week. And we're going to bring in Aaron Jeruzel. Let me see. I'm not used to live streaming with this many people. Okay. That's what I want it to look like. All right, welcome, guys. It's good to see you. So, 1 week ago, you were sitting in the middle of the Animal Behavior Center, starting our second day of our workshop. And I'd like this live stream to just, I've got a ton of photos to show. So, as we're talking about different things, I'll pull up the photos. Have you guys let me know what you thought of the workshop? Have you already started implementing, and how has it helped you? Who wants to start?
I can jump in.
Okay.
I came home that night and got the syringes out, picked up some baby food of varying flavors, and started introducing that as a reward to some of the birds. Um, a few were a little skittish to the syringe at first, but a couple of them we just did shaping over 2 days, and it was like one of them just wasn't even sure what the deal was. And then when it clicked and he realized what he was getting out of it, he was like, "Oh yeah, give me all that. Give me all of it." So we probably have about half of our flock right now who is now taking the baby food as a reward. We started that already. And kind of, we had some behaviors that they already knew, stationing and things like that. And so we just transitioned to using that as the reward for those things now. Um, to introduce that, and I'm really looking forward to like jumping into the next steps.
Good, good. So I'm showing a picture of you. I believe this is Coco, training Coco when we actually
Oh
are
yeah.
doing medication training. So he's taking the aversive taste from the syringe in this photo willingly. So medication training is one of the things we discussed last weekend and started implementing, because it's really super important to start training your animal to accept aversive taste before it comes to that point. Because sooner or later it's going to come to that point, and not that you can't do it if you haven't started the training, because you can, but it just makes that scenario so much less stressful on the animal. Charmin, I know you had mentioned a couple of things. Do you want to mention anything about, have you already started the training at home?
Yeah, I have. So I actually, I drove home Saturday night because I was within driving distance and started Saturday night with things that we learned on Saturday. Um, and then to follow that through this week, one of the things I was struggling with personally is, I have a bird that suddenly learned how to fly and we didn't know how to recall. She just wasn't recalling. And so,
Hey.
being able to do that training during the workshop and come home and start applying it Saturday night, she's got it down. She's you know, almost 100% of the time recalling when she's supposed to now. So it's
Great.
been remarkable.
Good, good. So we started the workshop last week, and I'm trying to think because it seems like so long ago. One of the first things we did was move into the bird room and start with the recall, with Kooky the kookaburra and Jelly Bean the curl crested arasari. Is any and both of those birds are flighted, and you can work on recall with birds that aren't flighted, because we house both birds that are and are not flighted, um, due to whatever reasons. But do you see how important the recall is? And that's a lot of times, that's one of the first things I'll start with an animal inside the enclosure, is come to me when I ask you, when I cue you to come to me. And then once you do, then I'm going to start with the target, then I'm going to start with the stationing. So we were working with Cookie and Jelly Bean, who are not used to a lot of people in the room. So one of the first things I did with you guys last weekend, before we even started with the recall, was just introducing you to the birds. Because the birds are not going to react calmly if all 10 people stand up at once and go towards one bird. If you got a flighted bird, you're going to have a bird up in the rafters, if they're not familiar with who you are. So we paired you with you delivering the positive reinforcers. Um, Anybody else want to talk about the recall, or did you like the setup of the workshop on how we started with recall and then we moved straight into the activities? Because before you even interacted with any of the animals, and we worked with more than birds, you have to get into the frame of mind of, you know what you want, but so many times people take too big of steps and actually start punishing the behavior they're trying to train, because you're coming at it from, you understand what you're wanting, but you're skipping too far ahead into the training plan. What did you guys think about the activities that we worked on?
I loved the activities. They were a major help for me to kind of see inside the animal's mind. And I liked them so much. The second I got home, I tried them on my husband and my daughter. My husband did okay. My 10-year-old daughter got so frustrated that she ended up like on the verge of tears almost. I'm like, okay, this is a really good insight for me to see like how I was jumping ahead too far. I was trying to teach her to take out a blue marker and a pink marker out of a box of markers. She ended up biting the box at one point. I was like, how do we get here? But how many times I think I've done that with my own animals? Like, how did we get here? How did I train this? It was pretty cool to see it.
So, and Sherman, you had a couple of comments about the activities as well.
Yeah, I think it really brought to light when you're sitting there with another person trying to train, I want you to take these two things out, or I want you to spin the bottle cap 4 times. For me, it really brought to light, if we can confuse the person sitting next to us with our cues, what are we really doing to our animals? And being able to break it down into those, much smaller baby steps, and training, the first piece and then chaining it to the next piece and then chaining it to the next piece. And that's where I think I was struggling with some of my animal behavior personally, was I want you to spin this thing 4 times and I'm not going to reward until you do it. And that's just too big of a chunk to do with an animal. Or a husband.
Or a husband, right. Or a daughter that's going to bite the box of crayons. So right. If the people are feeling this frustration, do you really want to sit in front of an alligator and train this? You can see where a parrot is going to bite you out of frustration, or just fly away and not interact with the training situation anyways. So that was my point. And did you see how you really need to think about what you're trying to do, and set the animal up for success?
Not just what you're trying to do, but what you're using to try to get the behavior right. So we had the bottle caps and we wanted someone to spin it. Well, bottle cap, or no, sorry, it was a clothespin. And a clothespin isn't something you normally spin. You usually pick it up and open it and play with it, right? It's got a spring. But when we switched it to the top, something that naturally spins, they knew what to do. And then after you can, get that behavior, you can add in that clothespin, and then, they figure out that that's what it's supposed to be. So even, the tools we're using, not just how we're using, not just how you're training it or how you break it down.
Yeah, and that's why setting the animal up for success. So I can't remember. I think the first day I introduced you guys to Bruce, and Bruce is a really young, fearful alligator with a history of reinforcement of the only type of human interaction is being captured, so his tank can be cleaned. So that platform, that like a little patio, which we created with the walls around it, helps guide. You could see how I started you guys with recall, pairing you with the delivery of the food. And then those walls that were set up on the patio helped guide him when we were bringing him out and teaching him to turn around to go back into the enclosure. So, and I mentioned to you guys that before I bring any animal out of the enclosure, I start training them how I'm going to get them back. Because you can bring them out and have all this great interaction, and then that's when you're taking too big of steps, because people are like, oh crap, now what do I do? How do I get them back? And a lot of times people resort to capturing the animal and putting it back. So you're ending your training session with an aversive. So I train it how to go back before I even bring it out. And that's what those walls were for Bruce the alligator, to help guide him. So we had one animal in the workshop that was like, I'm not working. This is too much information. I'm not comfortable with this. And that was Rocky, the Moluccan cockatiel. And we talked about why that had happened. But did you see, when we started training the hyacinths, did you see how we've got so much more to do before we can even teach them to station? And that was a lot about rates of reinforcement. Did you guys do any of the hyacinth macaw training? What did you feel about that scenario?
I think in general, both the activities and then working with the highs, and even some of the other birds, at one point, Kooky and Jellybean were both kind of tapped out for training. They didn't want to do it anymore. It really kind of drove home, like, we might be ready to do all these things and take these great steps, but it's not on our timeline. You can only do what the bird is willing to do. And it sort of goes back to the activities. I had the opportunity to be on both sides of both the trainer and the trainee of our kind of big training activities. And I had a new appreciation for how frustrating it is to be trained, to not know what you're supposed to do. And so I think it really drove home the patience aspect of training for me. And sort of, like with the highs, they were so much and trying to keep them separate and reward them separately so they didn't fight. It was like breaking it into those little things where they could be successful. Like when you did the session, I was being trained to take beads out of the cup, and you wanted me to pick a specific one. So when the whole cup was full of beads, I didn't know what to. Oh, look, we just got joined by Stanley. We didn't know what I didn't know what to pull out. But then once you removed all the beads except the one you wanted me to take, it seemed so obvious once you did it. And I just think that was one of my big take homes. Just the patience and tiny steps are all you need to take to be successful.
And make it so simple for them to be successful. Because when you're constantly being reinforced for being successful, the animal's going to want to interact more and more. What do you want me to do now? What do you want me to do now? So here is a photo I took this past week of Bruce coming out of his enclosure. And you'll see, like throughout the workshop, I took you over and showed you, this is where we're going. This is how you get an animal to move from point A to point B with a target. Make it so simple. So just like with the beads, we talked about the target. Bring the target in, have the animal look at it. The importance of the bridge. Do you see how if your bridge is off like 1.5 seconds, now you're really confusing your animal, because it thinks it needs to look this way when you actually wanted it to start looking at the target. So I have a couple different things, and feel free to say anything you guys want.
I think the bridge thing is important too. I stopped using a clicker after the training and went to a verbal bridge, because my finger is not as fast as my mouth and I can react at the exact moment instead of, getting the click in the wrong spot. And, I have two rose-breasted cockatoos, two galahs, an African gray, and a Kaik. You know, the African gray is fine, whatever. The other three are so hyper. If you miss it by, you know, even 2 seconds, it's gone. And now I'm rewarding the scream at the end of whatever it is, or the, you know, getting ready to fly away instead of, you know, the calm behavior I wanted.
Good. Good. I've got a couple of photos I want to show. Here's Aaron. This was on the first day when we introduced, this is you guys introducing yourself to the Hornbills. So this is Fred and Wilma, the fearful black casque Hornbills, and they're also a bonded pair. We did a lot of training with the Hornbills. Because you're adding in levels of complexity in your training through working with not just one animal, but two. Now they're, and on top of that, they're fearful. And on top of that, if you want to work with them separately, how are you going to do that? Because they're a bonded pair. You know, they find comfort in being with each other. Did the act, and I can start putting up some photos as we talk about that. Were the black casques beneficial to the training of the workshop?
I found all the different animals really beneficial. Sorry, I am being attacked by a very poorly trained Goffin's cockatoo as I am trying to join you. He is all over my hands right now. Because, you know, you go in and I, you know, wasn't sure what to expect from the animals, but we were doing actual training with them. It wasn't that you were just showing us birds you had already trained and how you trained them. We stepped in to do the actual training, and they were all at different stages. So we weren't working with birds who knew, you know, some of them knew how to take an aversive from the syringe, but they were at different levels. And so I think seeing each bird at its various level, and, you know, even Bruce, and then when we went and saw the giraffes, you know, meeting the animals where they are. I thought it was really, I left with so much in my brain.
Good. And that was my intention, because the highs are totally different than the Hornbills. The Hornbills are totally different than Bruce the alligator. Bruce is totally different than Rico, who's like begging people to come over and start training him, which is going to be the first one to do some damage if you move too fast, too far, too fast. So with the Hornbills, I just want to show a couple different photos. So now we've got I could probably make this photo larger, but the reason I took this screenshot of this video is because here's Shelly training Fred. Well, she thinks she's just introducing herself to Fred, but there's a lot of information in this photo when I'm feeding a bird or when I'm training a bird. Not only am I looking at exactly what behavior we're doing, but I'm looking at what are their eyes looking at? What's their feather placement? How's the shape of their eyes? If they're on me, you can feel like a foot tense. When I feel a foot tense, I will look at that animal because something just changed. But in this photo, Fred is looking down at her hand. When I have a bird that's looking down at my hand instead of in my eyes, that's showing me his level of comfort. He's comfortable enough to take his eyes off of me. And that's exactly what's happening in this photo. So then our goal was to introduce these two to crate training. You're working with a bonded pair. What did you guys think about all the activities we did and what we had to do? We had to target numerous different areas to even get close to that crate. Anybody jump in and say anything as I flip through these photos? So,
Well,
go ahead, Megan.
Working with the Hornbills was probably like my favorite thing. The whole, I mean, they were so cool, and working with them together was something new for me. I haven't really worked with bonded pairs before. And I remember crate training with them to get started. There's a lot going on because you've got one person reinforcing Fred for being at least nearby, and then one person reinforcing Wilma for moving from one stand to a stand closer to the crate, and then, hopping onto the edge of the crate. So you're having two different, potentially entirely different timings of reinforcement for both birds at the same time, and you're working with other people to do it. And it was it was like one of the best and most thought-provoking moments of the entire workshop was when Wilma went into the crate. And I got so excited that my reward was too quick. And she ended up taking it, but hopping back out almost immediately. So it even makes you think about the timing of not only your bridges, but also your reinforcement and how you're delivering it. And, you could end up completely accidentally adversing them away from the behavior that you wanted in the first place. It ended up turning out fine, but both getting her in the crate for the very first time and also kind of spooking her back off were like thought-provoking moments of the workshop.
And we all make mistakes. Anybody that says they don't is lying. You learn through those mistakes. So you move your pace of moving the reinforcer to Wilma. She took the positive reinforcer, but it punished the behavior of her staying there. She grabbed it, boom, took off. But you learn through that. So we're training both Fred and Wilma, and we kept Fred at a distance. And we had two people working on this at a time, because it can become, you got to really focus when you're working on two of them and there's only one trainer. So don't forget to reinforce the bird that's coming closer, still staying further away. And you'll see how we moved in, like, changing reinforcers. So we moved to scramble eggs, and that's when Wilma's like, oh yeah, game on, I'm coming to the crate. The bigger the behavior, the bigger the reinforcer. So here's Megan calling Wilma to this. And we didn't do any of this training before you guys got here. The only thing we did, we didn't even open up the crate door. The only thing we did was ask Wilma to come down to this perch to see if we had the perch set up correctly. And then I live streamed that in our workshop group, so you guys could see. We don't want to do the training. We want you guys to do the training, but here's how we're setting it up so it's successful when you get here.
I thought working with the bonded pair was really interesting because their confidence level was so different. They were bonded, but Wilma was a lot more confident with us than Fred was. And so it was interesting to see the pace of the training between the two of them because of those differences in personality. But at the same time, also how quickly Fred even learned in the couple days we were there, how much more comfortable he got with us in the span of 2 days. It was really, really interesting to watch all that. So,
and you know why he moved that fast is because you guys were pairing yourself with the positives, and I pointed out all the potential averses before we even started. Yeah. So don't walk behind a fearful bird. Everybody try not to move too much. Like Fred we worked a lot with sitting on those rolling chairs. And what I've noticed is I push myself with my feet and I leave my legs straight out while I've moved into the position. That's an aversive to Fred. He wants that foot. You better keep it with your body, with the core of your body, because now he's got to look at your eyes, your body, and your foot sitting way out here. So I'm just showing these last two photos because you've seen in the live stream that I've continued in the Facebook group after you guys have gone. Look what we're getting. And that happened, I believe it was Thursday. Fred is in the crate. And seeing that fearful of a bird, that empowered, that's what makes me cry, makes me tears of joy, So then we took you out to the giraffes, and somebody in the workshop said, how intelligent do you think giraffes are? Or would you say giraffes are? And I was like, well, how do you base intelligence? But I'll tell you what, The rate at which an animal can pick up and move at how fast between training sessions, I look at, they learn very quickly. What did you guys think about how we went out with the giraffes and I said, here's how it works with the different species?
For me, that was beneficial. There's a lot of things that are the same, right? You're teaching a target, you're reinforcing, you're using a bridge. But there's some, things about that particular animal that might be different, or how you deliver to that animal that might be different. And for me, that was the important piece, right? Because everyone says, well, you're just training an animal. That's true, but you got to look at the individual animal, even, amongst the same species.
So, when I trained the giraffes, and I mentioned this, and we saw it happen, they're used to the carrots being cut up in slices, and instead, for the first time ever, to save time, we chose to cut them up in cubes. And what happened?
Puzzles hated them.
Puzzles refused to take a cube. He wanted, I've only worked with him with the disc. And I showed this photo of Shelly feeding Puzzles, because how you deliver the reinforcer is either a positive reinforcer or a punisher. So even though you're working with a highly effective reinforcer, we saw how the shape of it, if it changes, and then the delivery. So I explained to you that Puzzles won't come down and take the reinforcer from your fingers. You have to shove it in his mouth about an inch, and then he'll take it. And then I have this photo of Aaron working with Toski when we talked about the target. So what we want is the giraffe touching the target stick with his nose. What we don't want is him sticking his tongue out and grabbing the target stick, which he has a history of doing. So we showed you how to set him up for success. When doesn't he stick his tongue out? He doesn't stick his tongue out when your hand is 2 inches away from his face. Bridge, reinforce before that tongue even comes out, and stay there. And you worked with Lindsay on that part. And do you see how teaching a target can help with teaching a recall?
100%.
Yeah. That's pretty much all the photos, even though I didn't post all the photos, but I just wanted to call up some important ones that showed the work that we're doing. I loved this workshop. I love giving this workshop. Anything else you guys want to say, how it fine-tunes technique?
I think one of my biggest takeaways, and it seems so dumb now thinking about it, but is that the bridge can be verbal. There's so much, like when you're learning training animals, it's clicker training. And that whole mental switch for me from that it has to be some sort of, clicker bridge, it just makes so much sense and makes everything so much easier. The timing's easier. It frees up a hand. It, as dumb and simple as it sounds, that was one of my biggest takeaways from the weekend.
And
it worked for I don't know why it clicked this weekend, that it clicked that I don't have to use a clicker.
Well, when you think about the bridge, it is a sound, a signal.
Right.
So did it help put into perspective, okay, so what are you going to do when you're working with a deaf animal who can't hear the bridge? What are you going to do with a deaf and blind animal who can't hear it and they can't see the signal? It's too bad we couldn't have had Snow, our deaf and blind border collie, there, because she's a fabulous educator. But I think I talked about her enough. So yeah, what has I've used a clicker I have not found an area where I think a clicker has to be there. And how that works for me is I'm getting the behavior I want by using a verbal bridge or a signal.
I think I've started using both a verbal and a signal at the same time, so that, I mean, you don't know what situation you're gonna find yourself in, right? So if I can signal and give a verbal bridge at the same time, the bird has started to know that if I do this, this is what I'm rewarding you. If I say good, I'm rewarding you. And they've started reacting, that way. And I don't do them necessarily at the same time. I'm just training them both ways.
Yeah, because a lot of times I'll just use a signal. But what am I going to do when I'm training an animal that's not looking at me and it's running or flying the other way, and I want to tell it that right there, they can't see me.
That's right.
So that's where the verbal comes in. I will use verbal and hand signals a lot. Well, I know, Charmin, you got to go here pretty soon. We're coming up on 45 minutes. I just want to thank you guys so much for attending last weekend. We had a wait list to get into this one, and we did have one of the people that was in this one that was in last year. So we had another one from last year wanting to get in. So, and we've progressed so much in a year in between these workshops on what the animals are doing that we're contemplating. I don't know if we'll have this one again yet this year. And if we do, we'll have it in October.
I could just say to anybody out there who's thinking about it and wondering if it would help them or if they have enough experience to try it. I don't think there is anybody who could take it that wouldn't learn something. There are so many different things you can take away from one of these workshops. I'd recommend it to anybody.
I do as well. And I'm one of those people that thought I didn't have enough experience, and Shelley talked me into it. So
Shelley talked me into it too. I was like, no, Shell, I'm not ready. And she's like,
all three of you worked everybody worked so well in this workshop. It was really a joy working with you guys. And I told you when the workshop started, I meant it. And that's how no workshop that I give is ever repeated twice.
Right.
Because the animals have changed. The people have changed. So I told you when we started this workshop, I am going to treat all attendees as though you are being employed by me, and I'm going to set you up for success and make it happen.
It's probably a challenging weekend for you because you're not just training Wilma and Fred, you're training all of us too. So
I'm watching Wilma and Fred, and I'm watching the whole group.
Yeah.
Where are they? What are they doing? Where are they moving? And we even had to move ourselves around when we were working with Wilma and Fred, because we were able to hand her a reinforcer and toss it to Fred. And then we saw that the toss was over top of Wilma's head, and that was an aversive to her. So we moved the people around to get success.
I think even just like, because I followed level 1 in the Parrot Project for a bit. So even getting to like test your timing a little bit, test what you've been learning, like through the podcasts and the webinars and stuff, was really a nice thing to have, to kind of see like where you needed to finesse things. But also, like, I'm kind of more of a shy, insecure person. So also getting that support from other people who can help you along. And, when you do make a mistake, you don't get slammed for it. You just figure out how to improve it next time. It was very confidence building also to go to the workshop.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So Megan's talking about our online memberships. So I know I think almost everybody except for one person in this workshop wasn't already a member of level 1 or level 2, our online memberships. And I know several people were like binge listening to the podcast before the workshop. So it's good to hear that being a member helped get you prepared for coming to this workshop.
It's amazing. It's definitely worthwhile.
Good. Thank you. Well, I want to thank you guys for attending today, and happy Mother's Day. Even if you're not a mother, I don't know if everybody's a mother on here, but you're taking care of, if you're not taking care of kids, you're taking care of some kind of animal. So happy
Yeah.
Mother's Day to you.
To you as well.
All right. Thank you guys for attending.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.